Hello, good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to present this important topic to the August gathering. Today, I'm going to talk about disaster management is plan, uh, is management plan in principle and preparedness. And also, I will share a few experience what we had in the last year when we managed that Calicut airport disaster. So, as you know, a disaster is a phenomenon that has a potential to cause disruption or damage to the people and their environment. The disasters can be either natural or man-made, like it can also be a major one or a minor one, both natural and man-made. So the classical, sometimes the disasters can be natural in man-made. Classical example, our Kerala floods, then Chennai floods, and also recent many landslides happen in Kerala. All this may be due to the man-made causes like filling wetland, unauthorized constructions, again, destructions of the hills, etc., and deforestation, etc. And any kind of disaster, the preparedness is the most important one. A classical example of beautiful and brilliant preparedness and which reduce the impact of the disaster is that a disaster which has happened in 2013 in Japan, which is a triple disasters happen together, which include earthquake, tsunami, and that nuclear gas leak. And another brilliant evacuation plan done in India in 2018, that is that biggest cyclone hit on the Odisha, that is the Titli. And there they evacuated more than 3 lakh people. And this is one of the biggest evacuation plan ever happened in the world. And the death of this particular incident is only like in numbers that we can count in our fingers. So at the same time, you think about the Oki, is another disaster happened in 2000. It is in 2017 in Kerala and Tamil Nadu, which has got 300 and 318 people lost, and for 141 still are missing. And are we really prepared well for this instant? That is the real questions. And as far as the disaster preparation is concerned, the key points include mitigation or prevention, which involve structural and non-structural measures that should be taken to limit the impact of the disasters. And this can be achieved through risk analysis, which results in information that provide a foundation of mitigation activities that reduce the risk, and insurance that provide financial investment for those who are involved in the disasters. And another one I want to tell about the disaster management cycle. When a disaster is struck, and it will follow a sequence of events, immediately once the disaster is happened, it is go through the disaster relief, rehabilitation, and rehabilitation assistance and mitigation assistance. And the disaster has got both short-term effect and long-term effect. The short-term effect, which is solved, is managed by rescue and relief. That is the part of immediate disaster relief. And part of the rehabilitation assistance, we will do the real rehabilitation. And also we will do that reconstruction, what all the things damaged that will reconstruct. When this is over, then we will enter into the mitigation phase. In mitigation phase is constitute mainly the preparedness. And when this is something like it is follow a cycle. And see like the disaster planning, we know like the cyclone and our rainy season happen in about the May and June. For the preparation, we should start from January to April. And once a disaster happened, it was managed, is management of the just before management, just after management. After that, you have to follow that immediately after the disaster, you have to do the rescue, relief, rehabilitation, and then move to reconstruction. So this way it should be approached. Now, the most important of this today's topic, how the hospital to be get prepared. Like the hospital is need to be prepared in any kind of disaster, because the hospitals are the first institutions to be affected after any form of disaster, and are the hospital, whether this is that whether the disaster is a natural one or a man-made one, or yeah. So we need to prepare our doctors, nurses, paramedic, and other hospital staff to face and to manage the critical scenario what is happening during the disasters. So two terminology I would like to bring about while managing an hospital preparedness during disaster. One is a mass casualty incident, or MCI. A mass casualty incident is any incident that exceeds that responders or the receiving hospital capacity to treat or to transport. That is called the mass casualty incident. But the other one is a multiple casualty incident where the resources are not overwhelmed, but there will be a multiple victims that who are involved in the disaster will bring to the hospital. So what's the disaster management we have, like we need a pakka documented plan for both internal disaster as well as external disaster separately. So you need a systematic approach in this regard. And the systematic approach which include like a command and control, safety, the safety of self-safety, scene safety, and survivor safety. Then communication. Communication is the methane communication. That I explained what is the methane communication. Communication is the cornerstone of any kind of disaster management. Then assessment. Then T is the triage, treatment, and transport. Then evacuation, reallocation, and redeployment, and sometimes reconstruction. These are the basic components for any kind of disaster management. So, so you can remember all these 7 components in a components, just remembering the name disaster through the mnemonic disaster, DISASTER, disaster. So what is this paradigm? This paradigm is a D for detection, I for incident command, S for safety and security, A for assess hazards, S for support, T for triage, transport and treatment, E for evacuation, R for reallocation and redeployment, and also maybe reconstruction also under this R. So the detection, you have to detect that the disaster once has happened, whether it is internal disaster or an external disaster. Internal disaster means a disaster which happened inside the hospital, and an external disaster is something outside the hospital. So again, that disaster can be two-way. Either it can be standby or it can be declared. And suppose someone is saying like a plane is about to crash or it is coming, and we are anticipating a plane crash, means a disaster standby. A disaster declared means something happened and the plane is crashed already, and the casualties are started to send you. This is a disaster declared. And once a disaster occur, you need to be like a cordon of the zones. These zones are, there are 3 zones as far as the disaster spot is concerned. This is the bronze zone, silver zone, and gold zone. The bronze zone is the zone that is exactly situated just near, just around the disaster incident, place of incident, and the zone next to is the silver, and outermost zone is the gold. Why we want to set such a zone? This is mainly because of the disaster to make easy the disaster management, make this easy the disaster management and its proper execution. So the most important thing, the innermost zone only like the where that rescue units to be entered, like fire force and other trained people. And in the second zone, in the outer zone, in the middle zone, the civil defense, army, fire and rescue police, smart team, all these people, and the command, on-site command post, that will all situated is in the mid zone. And in the outermost zone, what that mortuary, then rest area, victims family center and the counseling center, uh, then food and other beverages supply, all this will be including media and all. In our country, most often like that media and VIPs will go to that innermost zone. That is something dangerous. They should be situated only in the outermost zone. That is the whole idea of this zonalization and the cordon offing the zones as far as disaster management is concerned. And the zones color zoning is slightly different in cases of fire explosions and toxins, where the zones are red zone, orange zone. Red zone is the innermost one, orange zone is the middle one, and the blue zone is the outermost one. This we decided depending upon that intensity of the fire and the explosion pressure and the toxic fumes, the concentration of the toxic fumes uh, in the atmosphere. The most important thing is like when we are setting up that services, we should consider the wind direction, how we have to do. Like suppose the wind is direction from the east is to west, the command zone, support area, so etc., should be placed in the area is from opposite to the wind direction. Suppose the wind is from west to east, all our command center and other areas should be in the west side, not on the east side. Now, this is about the detection D. Then we will come here to the I incident command. Incident command is basically born from the fire services. Just got a uniform structure. There will be clearly delineated roles and responsibility. They have a clear chain of command and communication. So they have like multiple people under the incident command. There will be planning session, operations, logistics, finance, security, press, media, all these coming under this incident command. In one point, everything is to be coordinated by incident commander. And next one is a support. To manage a disaster, one person alone cannot manage. It could be managed only with the support, depending upon the type of disaster, whether it is a national disaster, state disaster, or district disaster. That support should come from the national government, state government, then fire department, law and enforcing agency, police, local government, etc. So next one is assess. Whenever a disaster occurs, we should aware of the hazards. So we must be like assess the hazards that can be particularly the secondary devices which pose hazards, then bombs, then incapacitating devices, multiple snippers, terrorists, delayed devices. All these we have to consider, and we have to see that these are not there. Next is the second yes. This S is the means to ensure the protection of, that is a safety and security, through which we have to ensure the protection of the staff who are handling the disaster by using personal protective devices, then decontamination policies, particularly in a toxic fumes, a toxic exposure, proper decontamination, and also you need to be like a proper isolation protocol. Next one is the most important, the triage. Triage, is like one of the major component of the disaster management. It is a process of prioritizing patients based on the severity of their condition in order to treat as many as possible when our resources are insufficient. This is basically a triage. So the triage, the ultimate idea is like take the right patient to the right place at the right time in a right transport mode. And depending upon, we can for the triage purpose, we can categorize the patient into red, yellow, green, and black, depending upon the severity of the injury and their urgency. Red one to be addressed immediately, yellow you can delay it a little bit, green you can be wait, and someone is died on the spot should be marked as red. So how will you do such kind of triage in a field? That is something a challenging one. Suppose in an accident, there's 400 people are involved. To sort it out, these people on the spot, you can use a triage sieve. In triage sieve, what you will do, like you need whatever you are telling, you need to be like a very commanding voice and a loud, clear voice. Any emergency, your communication should be very prompt, loud, and authentic and powerful. And also in this, suppose 100 people are involved in a scene, you can use a commanding and public announcement system, which is available in ambulance and reliable with the police, etc. on the field. So what you have to do, the first thing you have to segregate out that those patients who can be walk. You can ask all the patients who are able to walk and such able to stand and walk. This patient could be segregated out, or they can move out from the scenario first. They will be tagged. They'll be tagged as green. All these green people to be first removed from the field, and they will be communicated and will be reassured by someone. You have a good communication capacity. Next is like you have to individually go and see each patient. For that, like those patients who are not able to walk, what we will do? So you go and nearby and look at his breathing. If he is not breathing, what you will do? You try to open his airway or to look for any kind of movement or any respiration. If no respiration, what you will do? You will put it as black tag and they designate it as that. If they have some movement or some respiration, they will be designated as red and put in the red tag. That kind of people transported immediately to a higher end hospital. Then coming back to looking at the breathing, if the breathing is present, what if you look at next? If the breathing is present, you look at how is the breathing. Is the breathing is normally or not? If the normal means if it is breathing between 10 to 30 rate, if he's abnormal breathing, he is breathing fast or slow, or he is an abnormal pattern of breathing. If it is someone is not having a normal breathing, is again someone is having abnormal breathing. Again, this is also dangerous. You mark it as red. And if he is breathing normally, then you look at for the capillary refill time. Is the whether how this capillary refill time is normal or not. If the capillary refill time is not normal, again he has some blood loss and all, he is also marked as red, tagged as red, and transported early. And if his capillary refill time is normal, then you go to the patient and again you ask a simple question: what happened, what is name, etc. Ask him to follow simple command or protrude the tongue out like that. And if this command, if he is not following properly, again he has got some head injury or his conscious level is not okay, and that patient is also like you have to mark red and transport immediately into the out of the field into a higher end vehicle. All the red category patients to be transported in a mobile ICU kind of vehicle and transported to higher end hospitals with all facilities. And someone is follow command normally, and what will happen is these are the only people in remain on the field. They will be tagged as yellow, and after red you transport yellow, and after yellow you transport green. This is the way you apply that safe triage. So you can use that ribbon for the as a triage tape, or maybe triage tags or tapes are available. And sometimes triage tag, printed tags are available. So you can, whatever is available, you can use it. Next, coming to the T is the treatment. Treatment include once reach in the hospital, they required multiple medication, antidote, antibodies, antibiotics, immunization, prophylaxis, then chelation in the case of toxicity, etc. It's a way the part of treatment. So what is next? Yes, next T is evacuation. See, like in an event of a disaster, sometimes a hospital might need to be evacuated either partially or fully to accommodate the casualty. Sometimes you have to quarantine or divert that incoming patient. And like sometimes all the cases like flood, you have to evacuate or the ground floor to another floor. And like one of the major evacuation happened in 2018 in Kochi, our hospital that is in Aster City, Kochi, completely evacuated. It included nearly 450 patients, including 100 critically ill patients on ventilator. So all patients shifted to another center. So sometimes, like you may have to shift the operation theater to, and sometimes you may be arranged in a temporary operation. Again, a minor surgical procedures in victim may have to be undertaken in those areas, which could mean altered level of asepsis like that you can do. So it's kind of arrangements may have to do in the management. Then evacuation. Sometimes you may have to convert various parts of the hospital, like hospital lobby can be converted. Sometimes auditorium may be converted, corridors may be converted, parking area may be converted, prayers may be converted as the patient care area. Like here it is the field hospital we constructed in the second wave of COVID pandemic in the last year. We constructed a field hospital in the car park area. You can see the inside and outside. Sometimes, like the patient may be shifted to another hospital if our services are overwhelmed, and for that purpose, you need to have the complete contact numbers, part of your preparation, and also you need an MOU with this kind of people, other institutions. This all to be placed well early, not once and disaster happen. It will be sufficiently early. Then, like the major disasters, sometimes you may have to open relief camp. You have to evacuate people from affected area and prone area to the camps. Again, you may have to run the medical camps. It's all the part of disaster management. Then, like one is a reallocation. Reallocation means that allocating the scarce equipment, if any in a way that serve that the largest number of lives, in contrast to the traditional focus of living individual lives. And sometimes you reallocating non-emergency and non-clinical doctors to emergency areas. Sometimes you recruit retired or unemployed person for the temporary service. So part of reallocation. Then last part is that recovery. In recovery, like you re-establish that once everything is settled, the early part is settled, then you start reconstructing the infrastructure. In this phase, you need to give psychological support and for the people who involved in the disasters. Then you may have to help in the economic recovery and the insurance claim, like that. It is a long process. And the key component is like ensuring adequate supply of the qualified healthcare providers who are available and willing to serve in a mass casualty event. For that matter, you need to be extensive training and compassion. And finally, this, like like a few practical tips I want to share while you are executing that hospital disaster management plan. This is like once you place a plan, and you need to be check it periodically. It should be it is not merely sitting on the document. It should be like coming into the practical sense. For that matter, what you do as a hospital emergency response plan shall be undergo periodic assessment and evaluation whether the plan is addresses in all issues, whatever you are placed it. And so again, like every hospital has to identify the disasters that can be happen their premises. Suppose in Calicut, we have to identify what all the specific disasters can happen in our area, like like a river, there's a flood you can happen, and a drowning you can think about. Then toxic fumes you can think about. Then plane crash. Like rail accident, like that way you have to identify the real disaster can happen in our locality. So according to that, you can customize whatever the national document placed by the national NDMA or state DMA, and which we customize according to our local need. And not only that, you have to execute that document appropriately, and you need to have like network the people. So what you want to do, like you have to identify, you have to customize, you have to execute and the network, then only that it will coming to the effectiveness at the time of an in disaster strike. So for that matter, you need to be local, a lot of exercises you have to do. You can do a computer-based simulation. You can do tabletop exercises. You can do mock drills. And you should do like the post-drill evaluation and put the corrective measures and make sure that that kind of corrective recommendations to be correct, or the non-compliances or non-conformities will be corrected appropriately on time-based manner. And you have to close that kind of non-conformities, then only it will be going to be an effective one. So communication is the key word in case of any disaster, everything depending upon communications. So you have to use like internal and external communications to facilitate, or to in a case of a disaster response. Then you need to having an updated phone numbers in your directory. You can use social media, you can use cell phone, you can use landline, you can use walkie-talkie, amateur radio, or whatever kind of communication, or TV, all these you can, whatever the communication mode is available, you can use to spread and to give that correct message to the people involved in it. And when a disaster happen, how you do a properly communicate, where you have to use like a, rather than give a haphazard and indistinct communication, you must give a distinct communication. And every communication, if you announce or if you communicate to someone about that, or to give a handover to communicate about the disaster, it should have like you can remember through a methane communication, or the communication include all the methane component. This methane component, M is my call sign. You tell who am I? I'm Dr. Venu. I am calling from, like that. You have to start that. M is for the my call sign, and also you mention what kind of incident is a major incident, minor incident, whether the incident is standby or declared. This is this is comprised of M. And E is you have to give the exact location, and T you have to give that what the type of incident it has happened. And then you mention about the hazard, whether it is hazards is present or it is potentially there will be an hazard. And also you have to mention like how to reach that particular thing, that is about the access. And again you have to mention how many casualties are involved, and what level of severity. Suppose it is 100 people involved, you tell about 15 people are severely injured, and 80 people are moderately injured, like that. And also you have to mention whether you required an emergency EMS service, if it is there, what kind of ambulance, how many number. This way, like if you are giving to an information to the hospital or the district authority or any person, this must component should be there in your communication. This is what is called methane communication. And while handling, beware of like fake news in social media. Social media is a good tool to manage the disaster. At the same time, some crooked people will utilize this in other way, and they'll spread the fake news that will create a lot of ambiguity, unwanted tension, and anxiety among the people. And this in social media helped a lot in Chennai flood and Kerala flood, and even in Kozhikode Nipah outbreaks. But even the COVID pandemic, a lot of fake news, or even I know like people spread the fake news in my name in the COVID second wave, and even in the third wave. And finally, this here it is the how you manage media. Media management is extremely important. You cannot do the manage the media haphazard. In Kerala, and you can see like 40 printed media, 40 visual media, and n number of online media, n number of all there. So when they are addressing there, it should be addressed where in a place where a designated room, and you have to address a designated person to communicate to media. Better to give like a periodic medical bulletin rather than giving this information here and there. And all information should be shared is based on the consensus opinion and consensus from the experts who are involved in the disaster management and patient management. So finally, I will try to share our experience in the Calicut plane crash. As you know, like Aster MIMS, we manage the major chunk of patient individually in Calicut plane crash. This we designated as Black Friday. Uh, it is a Black Friday, which is happened on August 7, 2020, and the disasters were declared at 1941 hours on 7/8/2020. So the main challenge of this disaster was all the plane craft came travel to the Vande Bharat plane traveling from Dubai to Calicut in the COVID scenario. So all the patients, all the victims are potentially the candidates for the COVID positivity. When we are getting the alert, our hospital was almost full, and we managed that entire scenario with the COVID pandemic precautions. And like those days, there was heavy raining outside, and also we have some uncertainty whether how many number of patients turning out or into our hospital. So once we received that alert, we announced mass casualty, mass casualty code, and immediately what we'll do, like we evacuated our non-coronary area, non-corona area of our main ED, and this area converted for the red area to receive to manage the patient. Our nuclear medicine area is converted into yellow area, and radiology reception area converted for the green patient, and the two ward exclusively evacuated and is reserved for the plane crash patient. Here you can see our emergency department people are prepared to receive that red patient in main ED. Here this is our nuclear medicine area, one is the radiology area. We managed that entire scenario with the full PPE. That was a big challenge. We never faced such a disaster management situation even before, any time before that. So continue our plane crash or mass casualty incident sequencing. So we stopped all the regular work in the radiology department. All the area is reserved for plane crash patient. OT activated. 10 bed is reserved in medical ICU for the crash patient. Hospitals supplied enough and more PPE and other materials to manage a large number of people. We dispatched 5 ambulances to the site. Then pharmacy blood bank activated and mobilized enough blood and other medications to the emergency department. Then incident come and took over the charge, and then operation team activated, security is positioned, then relation and customer care department, finance department, food and beverage, all are positioned, and they started working on that. We opened an exclusive patient waiting area for the crash patient by Sanders, and we erected a separate dashboard for the patient information system for the crash patient is concerned, and we opened a separate media briefing area and to give the time-to-time information to the media and press. And the 7:30, that incidents happened. We announced this mass casualty code in 8:22, and by 8:35 in the night, in the evening, we received the first patient, and we received the last patient on early morning, 1:10 a.m. And all the mass casualty is called off by 12:30, 12:35 a.m. and all patients stabilized, did their early stabilization and shifted to respective secondary destination area by around 12:50 in the morning. So all mass casualty, all patients by Sanders called and briefed. All the briefing is over by the early morning 3 a.m. and all by Sanders is taken to their victim and the wards by 3:30 a.m. So totally, we received 49 patients out of these 2 patients, 49 patients on the same day, and 8 patients after in the next day. And after the 49 patients, 2 patients referred out, and totally 47 patients treated in our hospital for their complete treatment received from our hospital. So all this story was portrayed very well in Indian Journal of Orthopedics, which was published in the 16th July 2021. And like out of the 47 patients, 38 of them are orthopedic, major problem are orthopedic issues and fractures and other things. In the entire mass casualty scenario, 74 doctors, 76 trained staff, and 58 supportive staff included, and they managed the show beautifully. And we received 17 red category patient, 19 yellow patient, and 7 green patient in the entire scenario. And out of these, 9 patients in the red category are pretty bad, and they resuscitated and managed. And the 2 patients had spinal cord paraplegia of the red category, and another 2 patients had paraplegia in the yellow category. And we had 3 deaths on arrival, which include the pilot, co-pilot, and then 1 child. And another patient who died in emergency room within the 3 hours of the arrival during the aggressive resuscitation. And the major injuries were the long bone fractures. Also, there are 12 spine fractures and 4 paraplegic. All paraplegic patients recovered fully, almost fully, when discharging from the hospital. So one important point I want to mention, we have that point of care COVID screening, which was manned by ED EMTs. It is placed in the emergency department. It was a great help in the screening all the patients quickly and effectively. So we finished all the screening, the COVID screening, by early morning 7 a.m. And there were 2 positive cases. We could protect all our staff, doctors, and other employees who involved in the mass casualty management. Another story I want to share, that we heard a mock drill a mega mock drill, which was conducted in Calicut airport, the same place where the present crash happened, that is in 2022, which was done by Aster, MIMS, Angels, Calicut District Administration, IMA, etc. And he's in this mock drill, we trained 857 airport staff and 250 lay people before the mock drill. And then we simulated a plane crash, 200 passengers on the board. And in the plane crash scenario, we have 500 volunteers, doctors, paramedics, EMTs, nurses, medical students, all are participated. All these 150 patients we transported in the part of the mocking from various hospitals in and around airport, that include Kondoti, Peridalmanda, Malappuram, then Calicut, MIMS, Medical College, Baby, and all other hospitals. And we had 175 ambulances participated in the mock drill, and we heard a post mock drill report, and which was submitted to authorities. They taken many appropriate and many corrective action. So this mock drill was very, very useful, and it was very helpful while managing this scenario. Well, it is made easy that present real scenarios happen in 2020. So finally, when concluding this session, the lesson learned for the entire Calicut mock drill is managing a mass casualty incident and a disaster in a pandemic scenario in full PPE was the biggest challenge ever we faced. And the plane crash, which has happened in 7:41 p.m. and the patients were reaching the hospital by 8:30. It was that shifting time for the nurses, etc. So this was really helped us for managing to get more stuff. It was very easy because of the shifting time. And point of care COVID screening in the emergency department, which was made that the screening process quick and more effective. And quality accreditations, frequent mock drills, and tabletop exercises, which are made the disaster management easy. It was made the disaster management easy. But I would say that pre-hospital care, which has happened in the last 2020 plane crash, is not fully okay. But still, the accreditation NABH, JCA, all these are really, really helpful while managing such kind of scenarios. So thank you so much for your patient listening. If you have any question, you can ask now.